welcome to the Sport of Kings podcast, episode 345, which is also the third episode of the 2.0 reboot of the podcast where the horse player is king. I'm going to continue to experiment with the format over the next few months and welcome your feedback on Twitter/X. My handle is at Derby1592, at Derby159-2. And I'm also happy to announce that the Sport of Kings has a new sponsor, Amwager. Like this podcast, Amwager is the ADW where the horse player is king. So stay tuned for some great upcoming promotions, including next week for the Pegasus card at Gulfstream Park. But now we are going to turn our attention to this week, and I'm joined by special guest, CDI analyst Kevin Kilroy. The show today will focus on finding and exploiting value on Saturday's Fairgrounds card. It's a strong card, and it includes a Derby prep, the Lecomte Stakes. We'll talk about our strongest handicapping opinions and how we might leverage those opinions using optimal betting strategies. Hi, Kevin. How's it going?
Chris, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me on. It's very cool to be on for the 2.0 Sport of Kings, and listening to the first two. I like it, man, in terms of how you're marrying the betting strategy stuff and the attack of the cards. So hopefully we can lead the people to some sort of promised land for tomorrow. But in general, just give some good food for thought in terms of how to structure some bets.
Exactly. That's what we want to do. So let's start out, before we start talking about some specific races that we will cover in more detail. Just what's your handicapping approach in general? How do you target races and when you look at them, decide whether or not you're going to actually make a bet? And if you are going to make a wager, how you decide which pools to target? So kind of give us that high level view, and then we'll get a chance to go into more detail on the races we talk about.
Yeah, for me, my process, I sit down, I open up Formulator, DRF Formulator, and I open up Thoroughgraph. Those are my two tools. I'm always just handicapping, looking to figure out where the money's going to go. Where the money's going to go is such a huge part of it in terms of, first choice, but also second choice, third choice, and who they might sleep on altogether. Trying to get a sense, of course, where the money's going, and then whether I trust those horses as well, because the more that I have a feel for where the money's going to go, the more I've got to be more confident and certain in a short price, right? If I do like a short price in a race. And basically, I'm just looking at each race to try to think in terms of what's my opinion about the horses that are going to take money, and what are other angles I can find in this race. I'm always trying to think, like, how much work should I do on this card? How much should I dig into it? Is it worth it, right? If I've got a sense that the money might go in the wrong direction, which can be simply just based off of connections, seeing jockeys up on different horses. Here, at Fairgrounds, it's Jose Ortiz and Paco Lopez. They take a ton of money. If it's Joe Sharp or Brad Cox or Cherie DeVoe, those barns take a lot of money, and a lot of the local barns do too. But just getting a sense for if I have a feeling that they're vulnerable, if they're going to take irrational money and they're not really worth that price, then I'm going to dig into it a little bit. And then I just start looking for angles. I start looking for things. Best case scenario for me, Chris, is when I keep stable alerts, right? And when I've got a horse that's coming up for that, and I really want to attack those races and get a sense for it. It's just a matter of, it's almost part of being a public handicapper, which is tough, is that I've got to come up with opinions and talk about every race, that I'm on air for, right? And so it can get a little bit compulsive. It can get, in terms of just being a gambler who just is like wants to fire based off all the opinions that I've formed. But I've gotten better over the years at really having a sense for how to do that, how to pass races, how to narrow it, how to get away from playing pick fives, pick sixes, how to really get into those sweet spots and just set it up. It's not like you have to, it's just willing to be wrong, willing to build a ticket that's strong, that has value into it, built into it for sure, that it can't not pay. It's sort of it's just rewards, and structuring it that way. Hopefully, pushing it up a little bit, especially with the pick threes, doubles, playing it for more than just that minimum wager, and just willing to be wrong, willing to be like, all right, that didn't happen for me. But from what I've been finding recently, specifically over this past year or so, where I feel like I've gotten tighter at this and better at this, is that it pays off. My opinions are sharp enough that if I've got it structured right, it's going to be good. So, I'm just looking for those spots where I can take a swing. And it's not always about, like, people say, like, form an opinion about the favorite, and you have to be fully against the favorite, that you hate the horse, you think they have no shot in winning. It's just a matter of you think that they're just going to be bet to that underlay zone, and there's other live horses in the race that have a shot. Now, I love, obviously, deeper fields. It's just adds so much more value to the equation. I'm always looking for deep field, in turf races, but also, I mean, looking at this last one that we just ran here at Fairgrounds, there was 10 in there, and it was just at that claiming 7-5 level, and I had a big case on 11-1 that ran his heart out and just got beat by a head. It's just a matter of being willing to even just one reason against a favorite is enough. You don't have to be like, oh, I just know this favorite's not going to win. You just don't have to be in that spot. I think if you just can poke a hole, it's worth opening up and not playing defensively and not using that favorite. That's sort of it as well.
Well, that's great because you do have a challenge that most people don't have, and that is you have to look, like when you're doing the fairgrounds races, you have to look and talk about every race. So you can't just skip over races that don't look promising to you. And like you said, you've put the work in, and the temptation is always to play
Always there.
something, right? And so you've kind of had to discipline yourself and pick your spots. It sounds like you feel like you're getting better at that.
Yeah, I really do feel it. I can see it in my in my results. The pick threes and pick fours specifically is the pools where I've been having a good amount of success. And as of yesterday, the trifecta too. I had a really nice trifecta that came home, and for me, it's just race by race and the confidence of your opinion, and just what I'm trying to get better at, Chris, and what feels really good that I've been doing is getting away from the action bets. When I'm betting for a minimum amount, I really don't have a strong opinion. I ask myself, do I want to push this ticket 5 times? And I try to build skinny tickets. I try to build small tickets. I just do. That's just how I am. Whether it's a pick five or a pick three, and when I'm sitting there and whenever I have that thought in my head, like, I don't want to lose to that horse. So it's that horse could win this race. I wouldn't want to lose to it. I just have gotten better at just saying I can be wrong. It's okay to be wrong. Just don't use that horse. Use your opinions. Now I'll get a little bit looser and I'll spread deeper when I'm singling, a price horse. I just will. I just want to be open to that. When I've got such a valuable situation that if my price horse gets home and I want to multiply that by all the other horses who win in those legs nearby, I will be a little bit more loose and be willing to be wrong, about a horse that I thought that was going to be an underlay that couldn't win, because I know it's going to be there. And like for a pick three, I want 2 of those legs. I want 2 legs that, whether I'm singling or just using a couple, that if they're all going to be prices, I'm going to be okay with using a short price horse I don't like in that third leg. I had a situation like that in this last sequence here today. It was a tough beat. Can I tell a tough beat story?
Sure. I mean, that we always love the tough beat stories.
So the ticket that I played, it was a pick three. I'm just pulling it up here. That began in the there we go. Began in the 6th, and I used 3 horses, 2, 7, 8. All of them were, well, at the 8 last minute went from 8-1 to 7-2. But the 2 and the 7, they were 8-1 and 11-1. So I had a valuable proposition in the first leg if I got that right. And the next leg, I love the 10. I thought the 1 and the 3 would be fair value, although third, fourth choice, second, third, fourth choice. I thought the 9 had an excuse, and the 4 was going to be the chalk, but I used it because in the last leg I singled this 6-1 morning line shot that went off at 11-1. So I just knew that ticket, if it hits, it's gonna pay well, even if that chalk came home in the fourth. So for that ticket, I hit it 5 times just for 37.50. You think about pushing it multiple times, it doesn't get to be that expensive, right? And you get to really sort of play the game like we love it, to bet a little, make a lot. So I get the first leg with the 7 at 8-1. I think it was 7-8-1. Second leg, horse I love the most, got DQ'd, which cost me in a big way. The stewards brought the horse down because Paco was riding it, and there was some contact at the end. And if it wasn't Paco, they wouldn't have DQ'd it. That sucked. So it cost me the exacta, but I was still alive in the pick 3. And then Paco, extra focus in the last race, just runs down my 11-1 shot, fighting in the lane, Chris. I'm looking at $1,500 score, fighting in the lane. And here comes Paco. He heads my horse. My horse fights back, fought back, but Paco just came back over the top of him, one by a head, one by a neck. I don't know, something very, very close to the end. So the stewards and then just the Paco effect out finishing my horse, it cost me. But I feel good. It's not often that you feel good when you get that close to a good score. But I feel good because I knew I had it structured right. I didn't want to play the horse that won, Daryl's Bolt, in the end. Didn't like him. Paco gave him a good ride. I had an angle. It was a stable alert that I was singling in the last. It was a sprinter out angle. I'd handicapped the race before, saw the horse cutting back, knew that was a prep for the next race. So I just waited for his next race, and here it was today. And he ran his eyeballs out. He ran fantastic. He didn't quite get it done. It was close, So it's that type of ticket that I just think is where you want to be. You just want to open up to mid-price horses. You want to take a stand with a valuable horse. You can single chalk, but you just have to be looking at the next 2 legs in a pick 3. I think you want the majority of the legs to be giving you value these days. You want to know what type of chalk you're singling as well. If it's going to be a 1-5 or a Brad Cox horse that really is, plays lower than the win odds, in the sequence. But yeah, it's a fun game. It's really hard to be right in terms of your handicapping. You got to have that betting strategy, that structure intact to survive this and kind of push a little bit more into your bets and into your multi-race bets if you are playing lower than the pick 5s, even at pick 5s if you see it chalky. So that's what I've been doing recently. It's been a recipe for success, and hopefully we can build a ticket like that for tomorrow.
Yeah. It sounds like you had a good plan, just didn't quite get the result. But if you had it to do over again, you probably would do the same thing. It sounds like.
Yeah, I would do the same thing. I absolutely would. And that feels good.
Yeah, that's what you need to do. You can't live and die by each result, because that's a recipe for losing your sanity pretty quickly.
Yeah, or just like I could have been like, well, you know what? I singling a price horse, it's tough. Here's a bunch of other horses that could also win, and then all of a sudden you're adding 5 horses to a ticket, and then I'm paying, we're talking 190 or something like that for a pick 3. That would have, if it would have paid in the end. I don't know, but it's just you just can easily slip into including horses just because you don't want to lose, and as opposed to building a ticket that you think expresses your opinions and that has a good shot of giving you a good payday. So I think that's the key. You really just have to take a stand, not only when you're singling, but also in those races that you're opening up to the value horses.
All right, and we'll get a chance to talk about some specific races, but I want to cover one more thing before we get started, and that is the wagering menu at Fairgrounds. Fairgrounds, their takeout rates are pretty close to the average on just about every wager. There's really not any particularly player-friendly or unfriendly bet other than the jackpot pick 6, which I always recommend retail players just avoid that even on the mandatory days. And the CAWs are allowed their normal high-speed, unfettered access to all the pools at fairgrounds. So what that means is you need to make sure you really have found value before you make bets into these pools, because you have a relatively high bar, a high hurdle to overcome in terms of both the takeout combined with that fierce competition that you see from the CAW teams, especially in the more exotic wagers. So just keep that in mind. Be smart, pick your spots, just like Kevin said, and we'll start picking some spots right now. We talked about the card ahead of time, and
Chris, can I piggyback off of that real quick? Because
sure.
A lot of time, for a little bit, I was hitting some pick fours, pick threes, etc. And just when the payouts are low and you're just not seeing, what you want, you're like, what am I doing wrong here? It's so much with the takeout, so much with the sharp money out there that, like what you're saying, you just have to ensure that you are really opening it up to something that the payout is worth the risk, and that's what you want to keep in mind, because you don't just want to be cashing tickets that are low payers. That's not the point.
Yeah, and the game is tougher. It's getting tougher, and in order to keep pace, I think one key thing you have to do is exactly what you said you've been doing lately, and that is you have to be more selective and really insist on a good amount of value before you make a play. And if you do that, if you have the patience and discipline to do that, you can still be successful, long term, near term. Uh, but it does take a little bit of patience and self discipline. And I think that's been true. Even the top players that I know and that we've had on the Bet with the Best podcast, I mean, they're all doing the same thing. It's not because they're not good horse players. It's because they realize the game's getting tougher and they have to adjust. So you have to adjust as well. Everybody does.
Yeah.
All right. So we both said we liked the seventh race. So we'll talk about that one. And then you liked the last four races, the late pick four. So we'll cover those. So let's get started with race 7. That's the Duncan Kenner Stakes, going 5.5 furlongs on the turf for older horses. Why don't you give us your kind of a high level assessment of this race in terms of how you see the pace setting up and how you assess the favorite? And the favorite in this case looks like um, they have it assigned to Heart Headed. No, Unusually Wrong, who may go off
Yeah.
as a favorite. It does seem like Morning Line's a little off in here. I don't see Heart Headed being that low, and I don't see Bear River being that high, 8-1. But you can talk about that, see what you think, who you think the favorite will be, how you'd assess them, and kind of how you see the race setting up overall. And then
Yeah.
what's your strongest opinion you've got about this race?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think we've got some races where we need to really come up with our own opinions about how they're going to bet them. I mean, the morning lines, hopefully they're there, but they're not always there, especially the Lecomte. There's got a lot of work to be done in terms of figuring out how they're going to bet them. So, um, you know, I think that Usually Wrong is a vulnerable horse. I think it's one that we can take on. Isaac Castillo, Diodoro. I mean, these connections are formidable in terms of when they've got a horse going right. And he beat that field last out, but I don't know how much was really there. I don't really know. And he had a nice little sort of opening spot, and yeah. I mean, he got in his way, yada yada yada, the DQ. So I think we can take him on. I think he's got some classy company, and we've got some big shots in here. So hard headed as well as Usually Wrong. I'll try to beat both of those, whatever price they're going to be. I think the most likely winner, and who's going to be a shorter price, is Wendelson, is the rail horse in here for Hartman. He took on Comorabino Moide in a huge way in that Thanksgiving Classic. He looked fantastic. He just ran a race like we've seen him before. I mean, Wendelson has some serious form to him, and he seems to be right there. Hartman's been the barn's been hot as they come. As hot as they come. So he's seems to me like the most likely winner. I'm just wondering how much value we will get with him. It's a big field, Chris, so I think we can get pretty fair value even with second, third choices type of horses. One thing I'll mention, Chris, is we won't see Step Forward. Step Forward is going to scratch the 7, and Monsieur Candy, the 10. I've got
Okay,
as a
so
scratch and the
uh,
13 tough catch.
okay, great. Yeah, if you can fill us in on those, that's one thing I was going to ask you since you kind of plugged in there. Are there known scratches? So you've got the 4 step or 7 step forward, the 10 Monsignor Candy,
Hmm.
and the Tough Cats AE.
Yeah,
They're all out.
they're
All
out.
right.
They're out.
So that might, let's see, in terms of pace, is that going to have a big, probably doesn't have a big impact on the pace.
No, I
Um,
don't think so.
so let me just a couple things to follow up on what you've said so far, and then I'll let you keep rolling. Wendelson, it seems like the question with him isn't is he in good form? He's a good horse, but is he the same horse on turf as is on dirt?
Yeah,
He's never won on turf. He's only run 4 times, but he's only hit the board once. And his dirt form, he wins a lot of big races easily. So, do you think he's going to handle the turf, or is there a reason why you feel like he's going to be able to carry that form over onto the turf?
you know, I definitely prefer Hartman going from turf to dirt, just in terms of his stats. It's just sort of so one he's more successful at. But they began this horse on the turf when before he was with Hartman, and so two of those races that we have from him are his first two races of his career. The third is a two-turn race at Del Mar. And that recent effort, I thought it was a strong figure, a strong figure wherever you're looking. For that first start off a long layoff, it was March 29th. I think they got the ball rolling with him on October 18th, and he had every reason to move forward from that. And I think it set him up for that big run of the Thanksgiving Classic. So I think that he should be fine on it in terms of what they've always seen from him, in terms of his race that he's run most recently. And yeah, and just the barn is just sort of not to be doubted right now. They've been coming live left and right, so I think he'll handle it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I think his turf form is probably better than it looks on paper. He's
Yeah,
really bred to handle the turf, like you said. He started there. It's just amazing how Hartman. I mean, this horse is a great example. Gets in his barn, and it's just went from being a so-so horse to just being a monster. And he
yeah,
joins the barn,
monster.
it's first by 3, second, first by 5, second, first by 8. That third off the bench, first by 1.5. So, and those are like stakes allowance races. So it's just that guy can get horses to run. And when it switches barns to him, look out. This is a great example. So you like him, and I think the fact that his turf form is a little bit buried, you may get your something close to that 6-1 on him. I would think. Um, and unusually wrong. You seem pretty dismissive of him, despite the fact he wins a lot of races on the turf. Right? He's 4 for 5 sprinting on the turf. So, what is it about him that you don't like? Just think he's just from a number standpoint not that much better, or what? Because he's in good form and he's definitely likes to win.
Yeah, it's a little bit of something about what I saw in the stretch in terms of him jumping over the way he sort of erratically jumped over. I didn't see
When he
him.
ducked out, you're talking about sort of
Yeah,
ducked out.
there
Yeah.
was no rider cue for that to happen. There wasn't any sort of like uh, whip crop or anything like that. So it just had me question sort of what caused him to jump out. So I'm just gonna try to speak around that just a touch, just to sort of wonder about that. So I wonder if, yeah, I just wonder if he'll sort of be in that same sort of hands that he was last time.
All right, so you're willing to take on unusual. I keep wanting to say unusually wrong, usually wrong. Maybe because I'm usually wrong about how I pronounce that name.
Oh yeah, and
Um,
then also the fact that he just doesn't have the class lines, is another part that I think he just hasn't sort of faced some of these small
yeah,
fields. A lot of times he's been able to take care of small fields, and it's just gonna be a whole different trip for him this time.
yeah. I mean, his first time, he was with Evangeline and Lone Star. The first time at a mid-major track like Fairgrounds, he did well though, but it was an allowance. Now he's stepping in the stakes company, so this definitely the toughest field he's probably ever faced. Um, all right, so you like Wendelson? Sound like that's your value key. What else in this race? Anything else you have?
Yeah, there's two other horses. I mean, I'll mention Can't Deny It, the number 9. I think he's gonna be good in here. I mean, he was very impressive. He was working with one timer before his debut. which really tipped me to him, last year. And he hasn't hit the races that much, but he's been steadily improving. On Thoroughgraph, he doesn't look as strong as he necessarily does on buyers, but can't deny it. It's one of those situations where it's Ravelli. If he is live in this race, he's not going to be a good price. You got to know those type of barns that they get bet, quite hard. But it's a big enough field. I wouldn't want to lose to him in a multi-race sequence. He could offer fair enough value. But so the other two that I really like in here, I'll begin with number 5, Petkoff, coming out for Brittany Russell. He's been fantastic here. He had a lot of bad trips sort of before he came to us at Fairgrounds. He finally put it all together, and he just moved forward in that last race. And I've got every reason to believe, in terms of just talking to the barn about how he's doing, that he's ready to run that race back, if not better. He's dealt with some tough spots. I think he finishes strong. I think Ben suits him really, really well. And I think he's going to be more than 8-1. I think he's going to be twice that price in this group. I think he'll be dismissed. And then Bear River is the other one. I mean, the Del Mar effort, the Breeders' Cup effort, let's just say he just had a tough trip over there, and he wasn't himself. So you just got to draw a line through that. He's never been good on a fast main track. It just proven yet again, in the Thanksgiving Classic. But I think he's back to himself, and he ran great at Kentucky Downs. He's taken his track to a lot of, his game to a lot of different tracks. He doesn't necessarily need the lead, but he's going to be up there for sure. So I think he's going to be dangerous to wire it. So Bear River for me. DeSormo, the barn's been going great. It's been a barn you can trust in a huge way this meet.
So Bear River, he's 8-1 morning line. That seems ridiculous to me. What do you kind of think his price would be? I could see him being the favorite in here, but maybe I'm overdoing it a bit. What do you think his price will be?
I think he'll be what will he be? Who's going to be the favorite in here, Chris? This is an interesting little race.
Probably Unusually Wrong or Bear River. I think that's the way I would see it. But
he was the way that he ran the Thanksgiving Classic, and they dismissed him. And the way that he ran, with that 68, everybody's going to see that 68. I don't see them making him the favorite. I could see him opening up close to the favorite in terms of live money. But I think his price should be around 4-1. I think would be a fair price on Bear River. So what does that put him at? Second, third choice sort of spot.
Yeah. So between Bear River and Wendelson, what's the better play? I mean, what prices are you looking for on those two? Which one do you think is more likely to get the price you want?
Yeah, I would think Bear River. I mean, if you those 90 buyers are going to be staring at, and the form, the sharpness of Wendelson are going to be staring at the bettors in the face. I think it's going to be interesting. They could be the top two in here, couldn't they? Jeez, Chris.
Well, look at Bear River. Look at his buyer at Kentucky Downs. He got 103 buyer, and like you said,
but they forget.
You can excuse that turf sprint, and the other one was a dirt race. To me, we'll see, but I have a feeling he's certainly not going to be 8-1. That would shock me.
Yeah, I think it was a miss on the morning line, and I think Petkoff is the value, though. I mean, I think he's going to be the one that I will key. I mean, sometimes you can get him done on top, but sometimes you want to think about keying a price horse in the vertical. So Petkoff's going to be that type of horse for me for sure.
Yeah, he seems like he could be in the mix for sure, and I agree. He probably floats up. There's no way he's the same price as Bear River.
No way.
That's just a bad morning line. So the one place I disagree a little bit with you on, I like Wendelson quite a bit. I think Bear River's solid. I'm probably a little more high on Unusually Wrong, but I'm not interested in betting him. But I think Can't Deny It is just a total beast. This horse is only 3 turf races. He's just crushed the field, and all 3 of them is turf races. His losses were on synth going a mile and on dirt going. They had to kind of try him on the Triple Crown Trail because he was a talented horse, but he's a turf sprinter. They know it. I kind of a little biased on this because Frank Mistari is one of the owners.
Yeah.
He's a friend and he's been on the podcast before. And in fact, that March 14th race at Fairgrounds, I loved this horse, and so I made sure I talked to Frank and see what he thought about it. And he was really high on the horse, and the horse surprisingly went off at 5-1 and just crushed the field. And he went off at 5-1 again in his next race. So I'm not so sure he's going to get
that's a good point.
pounded.
That's a good
I
point.
mean, his last two races, he has been, or his last three, he's been 10-1, 5-1, 5-1. Now, and this is a pretty decent field. So I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 5 or 6-1 you could get on him, and I just think he's a monster. I think he's the kind of horse that could be a threat, in the Breeders' Cup turf sprint.
Yeah, Litigation he beat last time. That's a good horse for Brian Lynch, who's been in great form. I mean, that's a really good company line, even though we're just looking at allowance fields.
Yeah, so he's a little ouchy, right? Clearly off a big win, he goes on the bench for a couple hundred days, but he came back running. They freshened him. He's one of these horses that clearly has some kind of issues, and a lot of these really fast turf spinners are that way. But those are the kind of horses, especially with a trainer like he's got. They're not wasting races with preps or anything.
No,
they're going to have him.
Yeah,
and he's got some
Jerry
good
Brown
workouts.
He always says, sore horses or unsound horses can run their best race off a layoff. And that's where he's sort of at.
So I'm pretty high on him. That's where I would be my lane. But he and Wendelson are probably the two that I'm most interested in. So is this a race that you would be betting to win or playing exotics? What are you thinking here?
Yeah, I'll keep my prices in mind, in terms of if they do let either of those three, the 1, 1, 3, or 9 go off at a fair price. I do want to bet those to win. I think Petkoff's a little bit harder to get too thrilled to bet to win, but I do want to key him underneath in the try. I think I'd go as deep in the try with those others. Key him in there. So, but I got opinions, in the 5th and the 6th. Pick 5 it might be a middle pick 5 play, might be just a pick 3 into these. I also like horses in the 8th, so it's just a matter of figuring out how to skinny up and sort of how to do multiple tickets to express opinions. Where you can open up to value in multiple legs, but you still have to single or at least get really skinny in some of them for these pick 3s, pick 4s. But obviously, on a day like today, with the maidens, etc., there's a lot of live horses out there.
Yeah, a lot of maiden races in the early part of the card. Okay, well, let's move on to the late pick 4. So we'll talk about that sequence, and maybe we can talk about if you really like to pick 4, maybe how you'd be playing it. And we'll start with race number 9, that's right, race number 9, and that is a stakes race. That's a stakes race going 2 turns for older fillies and mares, and the favorite in that race is a pretty strong favorite, probably the 5 Medoro. So what do you think of that favorite? What do you think of this race kind of at a high level? And then what are your strongest opinions?
I mean, this is a race where first capping, I'm like, well, it's really hard to get away from who I think will be the top 2 choices, which is Medoro and Nanda Dea. And then I keep on staring at it and staring at it and staring at it and think, why would we take a short price on Nanda Dea coming back first time for Horacio de Paz? And why would we bet this Medoro, who has been win shy, although she's been facing very classy foes. But she seems to be moving well over the track. Sweet Treasure you can get to, but that's not going to get you any separation. So this is one of those races that I'm not as interested in betting in race 9. So can you tip me to any prices?
Yeah, I kind of saw the race as sort of a 2-horse race at first, just like you did with Medoro. I do think, you have to give her credit. The horses she's losing to are pretty good horses. So,
good horses.
And the last time she was in a non-graded stakes, she won, right? And she's been running against horses like Gimme Another and Mission of Joy and Breath. And those are just good horses to get suggested. So
And she
I'm
had an
willing.
excuse in the last one for sure. She got respolied. He tried to sneak up the rail before that first turn. I had to check back,
Yeah.
and she came flying. She was with the top
She
horses
galloped
in the
out
gallop
huge.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And that was a group one. So I think she's legit. I've always been a Nanadea fan. I think that horse just when it's at a race and it's going to run well. It did not run well in its last race. I thought it had some real excuses in that race, and its other two races were pretty impressive. They were probably more impressive than the margin of victory. So I think those two are legit. But um, I did dig deeper, and I did come up with a horse that I like more than I thought I would, and that is the one horse Cupid's Crush,
Mm.
who has run well at the fairgrounds before. But what I really like about her is that in middle distances, when she's going a mile or more, but not in a marathon like she was two races back, where they, for some reason, ran her in a mile and a half race over a yielding course.
Yeah.
Um, but in all her other mile races, she's been pretty darn good. I mean, if you look through that, she won by 10 at Canterbury. She won by 2 at Canterbury. I'm just going off her two-turn races. She won at Keeneland going 2 turns. She won again a couple more at Canterbury going 2 turns. So she's never lost in that middle distance range. And she's got positional speed, but she doesn't have to be on the lead. I mean, she's won from, stalking positions as well. So from that rail, um, you got to believe, especially, we haven't talked about this yet, but maybe we should. I mean, I'll get your opinion on it. But from that rail, she ought to be either on the lead or in a nice, pocket spot all the way around. And I think the rails come down at 0 for this. And usually that inside part of the turf course is pretty good. So she could really trip out. And her numbers, if you look at them, really aren't that bad compared to the favorites. So that was kind of where I was leaning at a potential huge price. She's 20-1 in the morning line. What do you think of that one? And do you agree with me about the rail on the turf course?
Yeah, I think she's super interesting, and Hugh Robertson's had a lot of success with two Emmys, in this series, and this is what she did last year, right? She sprinted and then she stretched out in this series, where she got on that sloppy track and was second to Stir Crazy, distant second and a weird speed figure second, but second. So she had a little bit of trouble in the Panzeretta as well. So I like the case that you're making for her. And Marcelino has been getting on the live horses. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the inside will be good, and then the outside is always good, Chris. It's just great out there, and you see riders sort of flock out there often. But the inside is still is going to be a great spot, and I think you're just onto it. It's just wherever they haven't been running, wherever the majority of the running isn't going on, is where you find horses sort of flying. And the inside will be like that tomorrow, and the outside will too. It's fresh, and the turf course looks fantastic. I've never seen it look this good. So it's also very fair, very fair. So that's fantastic.
So anyway, I'm thinking Cupid's Crush, but I will probably be playing that horse to win and trying to get it. And I do think the favorites are legit, but this is the kind of horse where if I can get her in there even second, I'll get a payoff for it. So that's kind of where I was leaning. So in your pick 4 ticket, where are you going on this one?
Well,
I'm
this is
still,
the first leg of the pick five.
this is a pick 5. Oh, okay. So, we weren't going to talk about this one. I made you talk about a race you didn't like. Sorry about
No,
that.
that's okay. You had a strong, a good opinion there. So that's awesome that we got to talk
Okay.
about the one there.
Well, let's not spend any more time on this one. Let's move on to the 10th. Cupid's Crush for me. Kevin, no, he's not really high on that race. So let's go to the 10th. This is a race where I don't have much of an opinion. This is the Silver Bullet Day for 3-year-old fillies going a mile and 70 yards. A small field. Tropa, I think, will be a pretty solid favorite in here.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking? This is the
Yeah,
kickoff for the pick four, late pick
yeah.
four.
It's a single in the first leg for me. Atropa, she's legit. She's against this group, and there's a lot of you know lightly raced fillies who could be anything in this race, but she's got some proven form, and she's got every reason to move forward. I mean, I think at the Goldenrod she was the touch green just in terms of switching leads back and forth, which I like to see. In terms of the fact that there's still going to be more there, and where I like to make that assessment. I think with DeVoe and the way that she's been training, she's been a filly that's been training with the likes of Bava, some of the best, some of the sort of prized runners in the barn. Atropa, she's going to be odds on, and I think she's a single in here. I think you can still make money playing verticals as well, because I do think that they'll sleep a little bit on Dancing in Old Town as well as Pashmina. Both really nice fillies that deserve some attention. Dancing Old Town always working very strong. Excuses in the first two, some tough trips against some good fillies, and she continues to train well down here at Fairgrounds. And Pashmina, she had no business being on the lead. Talking to Ben right after the race, he sort of fessed up. He's like, I shouldn't have put her out there. But similar to this race, the Untappable didn't have a true front runner, so that is a question mark that could create a little bit of a wrinkle. But I think that she rates this time and doesn't send, and she'll run much better. She's a big, nice filly, Constitution filly. So I'll use those two underneath and play the exacta maybe as deep as the trot with the one single on top, keyed on top.
Yeah, it's interesting that I would say Pashmina should go to the front this time. There's no speed, and a small field, she could control the race. But probably now the trainer's going to tell the rider to take her back in the race where she should go. So
I
we
mean,
can play her the next time.
Yeah, the way that she finished in the stretch, at a mile 70, it seemed like, yeah, she didn't love it there. She got lost or whatever. So um, we'll see. But she looked the part there on the 28th. She really did. She's big, and she's a neat one. So, and I think we can beat Taken by the Wind. She's an interesting case. Kenny's been talking about it a bunch. He's got his podcast and all that sort of stuff. Where she was on the vets list put on the vets list after winning the Pocahontas, and they've done everything. They've spent all sorts of money, getting all sorts of tests on her, and she's absolutely proven to be 100% in all sorts of different ways, and they haven't got her off the vets list. So I just bring that up to I think her training got a little bit delayed, and I'm going to wait for her in the next one. But she's just talented.
Yeah, to me, this race isn't very strong. I agree with you on Dancing in Old Town. Really hasn't had a chance to run yet, so that horse is the one with the most upside. And Atropa seems kind of a standout. So is this one where you just stone cold single the one and your pick
Yes.
four? Just to
Yes, and that's
start.
my mentality. Whenever I like a short price horse, I like to think about sort of the odds of the horse as the sort of the portion of the market that I'm buying. You know what I mean? So like if she's that short, then I've got a good coverage, in terms of my percentage of getting through that leg, my probability of getting through that leg. And I don't need to double my money, double the cost to add just a couple ticks more in terms of adding another runner in there. So when I like short price horses, I'm always single or keying them.
Yeah, that's probably the way to do it. She does seem like the most likely winner in the sequence, this late pick four. So
Yeah, I think
kind
maybe on the day.
kind of logical. There's one other one we'll get to where I think a lot of people will single. But I think she's probably stronger than that one. But we'll get to that race later. But for now, let's move on to the 11th race. This one is another turf route, a mile and a 16th for older horses. Let's see the favorite in here. Again, I don't think the morning line is right. They have Capuna as a 3-1 favorite. I think the 4 Laganos is gonna definitely be the favorite in here.
Right.
So what do you think about this race and kind of at a high level? And then, what are your strongest opinions?
Yeah. So, when I'm building tickets, I'm always keeping, all of my opinions in mind. And trying to figure out how to build it right. And I mean, handicapping it, I think the two most likely winners are Capuna and Laganos. I think we're right about that in terms of the morning line. I agree with you. I think Laganos is going to be a serious, serious favorite. Seeing Jose Ortiz on this one, coming out for Steve Asmussen, proven class. Capuna's a new turf, experiment that's been going really well for Norm. So I think Laganos. I think just beating Laganos might be enough in this race. I think it could be, potential single for some. I do think that it could be, just definitely on a lot of tickets. So Capuna maybe just needed that race in the Diliberto, maybe got an uneven ride. I thought Ben was just non-committal in terms of whether he was going to put him forward or if he was going to bury him and produce late. And he just kept him sort of uncovered and off the rail when he could have dropped and saved ground. He could have made some different decisions that could have helped Capuna. He definitely could have gotten closer to I'd rather be blessed instead of letting him go off. I mean, Theismann scratched in the paddock, and I think maybe some of the jocks didn't adjust after that happened last out. He was scratched because he was, improperly shod. He wasn't wearing the right turf shoe. So I think Capuna will run a very good race and is very live in there. And I like him. I've liked what I've seen. When he came out of the gates in the Diliberto, I thought he was a winner. I would have doubled the money I put on him in that last race. He just is holding himself in that way that we haven't seen him necessarily hold himself before. He's pretty confident. I think Cameo Performance is worth another shot. I mean, he's been a disappointment in terms of having a lot of good looks and having not getting it done, but I think at Turfway, he made a really bold move. I thought he might get Encino, but Encino was, I think, 2-5, 3-5, and Pratt was up there and he was loose on the lead. So he flattened out maybe just a touch. He likes turf better. I think his best race was in the Muni's here last year. He ran really, really well. He didn't get the win. It was that I'd rather be blessed, steal it out front sort of race. Everybody thought that he was going to come back to him, but he didn't. So he's back here, and he attracts IRAD. I think there's signal in that. You don't always get signal in that, but I do think there's signal in that. So Cameo Performance is a horse I want to use as well. I think Theismann has just done nothing wrong recently. There's no reason to think that he's not going to continue to sort of move forward off of that. He could be on the lead, Chris. I could see him trying to. Ben knows I'd rather be blessed. He rode him to that long shot victory at the Muni's. He's got this outside spot. He might just take that sort of spot away from him, or he might just sit right off of him. And I think Reagan's Wit and maybe even Gigante is a use in here. Reagan's Wit, well regarded, took a lot of money, could be 5-1, 6-1. And this gets Flavia and Pratt. And if we're beating Laganos, I think it's worth using Reagan's Wit. And Gigante's won at big prices before. His form isn't always perfect. It's not always a straight line. And Steve, he's a great horseman, and I think he's going to have him right. He's not running because he's doing bad. He wouldn't have brought him right back. So I think Gigante could be a fun one to be live to as well.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you say. And Laganos, I think, will be a clear top choice. And Capuna, it does seem like he's handled the turf pretty well, and he gets the rail, so he's definitely a contender. The horse you mentioned that I like probably more than you do is the 9 Reagan's Wit. This horse really showed a lot of talent. Kind of also seemed like a horse that still hadn't figured things out mentally very well last year. But disappointed on occasion, but ran some really big races as well. And certainly the barn can get them ready off the layoff, and gets a pretty good rider in Flavian Pratt. So I don't think the post will be an issue. So that horse, I'm just a little bit worried about the price. I don't think he'll get 10-1, but even like 6-1, I think might be playable, because for me, that's the horse to beat in here is Reagan's Wit. That horse could have matured a lot, both mentally and physically. And based on its early, talent it showed early, I just think that this horse is, the best horse in the race. But we'll see. Has to get the trip, has to be ready, and has to have developed. That's kind of the assumptions. That's why you need a price. But that's probably the one where that one, and then the other horse you didn't mention that I like is Vote No. Since this horse joined the Kelsey Danner barn, was the horse really improved, and then hit a couple races. The last two, I think, it had excuses. One was at Kentucky Downs. Like I said, I'll just throw out any race at Kentucky Downs. And before that, Saratoga got, for some reason, put on the lead and a kind of a crazy fast pace, going a mile and a half. But this horse has won, was just fine as a miler. I'm not sure it's a mile and a half horse anyway. It has won at that distance. I kind of like the cutback, the freshening. It could be a prep. The barn is a little bit, the layoff is a big question, but it could be much higher than that 12-1 morning line too, I think. So that's the one I see I could use at a potentially big price
I'm
as
glad to hear
well.
you push that one because I've been back and forth. I think you can make a case, and then in the end, I was telling myself I think it might be a prep for the next one as these races start going a little bit longer. But yeah, he's effective as a mile, and he's effective off the bench there, May 19th, right? So he's it might be the time, right? Instead of thinking of it as a prep, this might be the time you really are going to get that price. And we know it. Danner's barn has been on fire this past year, and flat bet profit just betting Kelsey Danner for all the horses she sent out on the year, and that's insane. Um, yeah, Bo Knows is definitely proven himself against some classy ones to be able to hold his own. And Paco, he knows how to work it out. He's been aboard for the win before, so you talked me into using that one for sure.
All right. So this race doesn't sound like there's a win bet in there for you, or did I miss something?
I mean, if I mean, Capuna's going to take money. If they gave me 5-1 on Capuna, I would bet Capuna, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, I think you might get about 4 or 5 to 1 on him. It just
You,
depends on how heavily they play Laganos, and Cameo Performance could take money. Reagan's Wit could take money. So I mean, it's
that's the
hard.
question. Will
Yeah.
Irad take money? A cameo? Yeah. Will Reagan's Witch, Cherie, and Flavian take money? They very well could. But
So
even
you
in
might.
the end, the last tick is gonna bring Capuna down. It's like you might get fooled, but I bet last tick would bring it down. I don't know, five
Yeah.
to two. Who knows?
So for
Gotta be
me,
nimble.
yeah, for me, Reagan's Wit would be a potential win bet if I get above 6 to 1. And Vote No would be the one I could use. More of an underneath. He's got a good kick. If he gets a decent setup, he could be finishing strong. Maybe he doesn't win, but he's won. Those two I'd be using maybe with some of the others. That's kind of how I would play this one. So in the pick four, how are you going to deal with this race in the pick four?
Well, I'll play multiple tickets. In all my tickets, I'll have a Tropa single. That's gonna be my live or die horse. I won't deviate from that. The deepest I'll go, I'll go 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 in this one because I can get a little bit skinny in the next race. So
So
I think I'd rather
you're gonna spread and you're going against Laganos, hoping he
go
takes
against
money.
Laganos, not use them at
Okay.
all. Not use them at all. Um, because I've got a strong opinion in the next race, but I don't think it's going to be all that much value if it were to come home. So we'll see.
All right, so let's talk about the next race. This is one of two graded stakes races, grade three race. This is for older horses going a mile and a 16th. Just a touch, the 8 horse. He's probably going to be the shortest price in the sequence. He'll be between him and a Tropa.
Yeah.
But it's Brad Cox. This horse has been bet way down before. He's coming off the long layoff. What are you going to do with that favorite in this leg? What do you
I'm gonna
see?
fade him so fast. I love taking on these types of horses. He's just the only case I think you can make for him. To excuse all his inability to get it done past any sort of solid field is that he hasn't had Lasix. He's 3 for 3 with Lasix. I think that's a story you have to tell yourself. And if so, if you're going to tell you just said, I think he's single just a touch. I don't see how you don't. Um, so I think he's very beatable. I think he's just proven to not have that heart to get it done. I don't think Irad, I don't think it's a rider. I haven't seen Florent make big mistakes with him or anything like that. I think he's very flashy in the mornings, and he just isn't quite that in the afternoons. So, I could be wrong, but it's good to be on the other side of the coin from horses like that. I can toss Henro, I can toss Cadet Core, I can toss Accelerize. In my mind, those three are gone. I want to put the majority of my money through Moonlight, and a ticket where I spread real deep, like I was talking about doing in the Colonel Bradley. Moonlight would be a single for me. So seeing him really come around for Chris Block, who I just think is just an undersung horseman. He's really fantastic. Him and Martin Martinez, his assistant, he deserves a lot of the credit too. He's just been sensational. I mean, he took on Not This Boy a couple times and beat him in good ways. He took on Dragoon Guard, who had a really nice, comfortable lead in that Cherokee Mile, and he ran him down. And Chris, it's not only just what that you win and the figure you get. It's that sort of the way that you finish, that late pace, that strong interest, the way you cut through the wire. And Moonlight's is that. He's just showing me that he is every bit of a graded stakes winner, just looking for that first one. So I can excuse the mile and 1/8 effort. That's probably a touch too far, and he just didn't have that same sort of trip that he's been able to work out, and maybe didn't have it. Didn't have it going on that track. I think maybe we could say he definitely loved it at Churchill, but he's run well here. He really came around at this track, so I think he'll run well at Fairgrounds. He's got the rail, and Jose knows him well. He's been up for 3 wins, 3 for 3 for this one. So Moonlight, I think, will get a good setup too. The pace on the outside will heat up. I mean, if there's scratches, this whole conversation changes. But 6, 7, and 8, they all are interested in going forward. That's for sure, and maybe even Accelerize.
So it reminded me on the scratches. Were there any other known scratches in the prior races we talked about?
Nothing in the Colonel Bradley.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and I'll just say it now in case we forget the Lecomte. Thunderbuck will run in this spot, and then Oselli will run in that race 8, that maiden.
All right. Okay. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you. So you're saying Moonlight, you're going to go take on Just a Touch. You're going to single Moonlight in your pick 4 is what I heard you say.
Well, I'll play multiple tickets. So okay. I'll go my deepest in the second leg and the fourth leg. I'll take all the ones that I think that have a good shot, to make sure I don't have a short price horses. I'll get away from Just a Touch, and I'll get away from Laganos in these 2 legs. I'm going to try to get separation here. So I'll single, and then I'll also spread a little bit deeper when I get skinnier in those other 2 legs to hit it multiple times, to push it multiple times.
Yeah, I think you'll get, I think many, many tickets will go through Just a Touch. So by fading him, that's probably your strongest opinion. Just if you can beat him, that unlocks some value in all the picks. So what price do you think Just a Touch is going to go off at, and what price do you think Moonlight will go off at?
I'd say Just a Touch 4 to 5.
Yeah, I think in that, or maybe even shorter. If he's much 4 to 5, or if higher than that, then that's probably signal. But in this field, he should be.
What he opens up at, I think, would be the key. You got to expect someone's going to do a $50,000 bet on him or something stupid right off the rip, right? I mean, who knows? But if he doesn't, then that's definitely signal.
Yeah, it's one of these horses that Brad Cox does a lot. He just really does not spot his horses aggressively sometimes, some of them. And like this one, he's been in 4 of his last 5 races. He's been 3 to 5, 1 to 5, 2 to 5, and 1 to 9. I mean, that's finding some soft spots. Now, the one time he ran in a tough race was the Met Mile, and he went off at 7 to 2 in there, even, with Fierceness and Raging Torrent and those horses in there. So this horse gets bet. If he's not shorter than 4 to 5, then I would definitely not touch him. I have a feeling he'll be much shorter than that, but we'll see, just based on the way he gets bet in his other races.
I guess he'll be at
I
one to
read,
five for much of it, and then he'll drift up to that 3 to 5, 4 to 5 zone.
yeah, it could be. And in the picks, he'll probably be used a lot. And so on Moonlight, what do you think he'll be? What price do you need to play him?
To play him to win, I mean, I think a fair price on him. I think a fair price on him is 3 to 1, to be honest, and I think I might get that. I think I might get that. I think he will be close to that, so I'll be a little bit leery, in terms of when you think you have that price and then that last tick happens. So, um, but I think I think he'll take a lot of money. I think the market knows here, specifically here at Fairgrounds, that Jose, where he goes is a big deal, And if he's not live, I mean, I think I could sort of either be very nervous about my ticket, or a reverse course because I also get nervous when Jose and Irad are in the same races. It does seem at times they kind of know who's going to win beforehand, who's on the better horse, and things can play out that way, and that's something that's always in the back of my mind as a horse player. So if he takes no money, then that could be, a bad signal. But I think Moonlight will be second choice for sure.
Yeah,
7 to 2, 3 to 1, maybe.
I think you'll get better than 3 to 1 on Moonlight. I think Just a Touch is going to get bet well below the 8 to 5 morning line, and I think Accelerize is the kind of horse people are going to gravitate towards. It's a Pletcher horse. Ran a big number on debut. Second off the layoff, he wins pretty easily. I have a feeling he's going to take money. He's the kind, especially given, he's got Pratt on board, Todd Pletcher training. That's just the kind of horse I think will take money. He has to improve to win, but I think I think you'll get your price of Moonlight. I've always liked this horse. I mean, if we go back to old podcasts, this horse, when he was a 3-year-old, I was high on him because he debuted on the turf, and then he was in an off the turf fast dirt track race, and he really looked good. But then he kept catching sloppy track, muddy track, sloppy track. And it was clear, I was thinking if I ever get this horse back on a fast track, I could get a price on him. But then they decided to go back to the turf with him for races. And it took him a while to finally get back on the dirt. And then when he changed barns, he finally, they settled in on letting him run on dirt, and he's become really good. And I think he's always wanted to be, kind of a middle distance dirt horse. So I'm kind of with you. He would be the one I'd be interested in. I probably won't bet this race, but I think he's definitely a strong alternative to Just a Touch. And, depending on the way the race shapes up, he could get a good trip. I have a feeling they're going to send Just a Touch, but from that post, Irad may, be a little more patient and wait and see what happens in front of him. But it does seem like there's other speed to keep them honest. And Moonlight, should be able to save ground early and then, have that inside out trip late. So I think he has a chance.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on that one before we go to the last race?
Yeah, my read is that Accelerize is a fade. That he's the stablemate that joined Jackson Hole, who's racing in the third. I think that they wanted to bring Jackson Hole out here. This is my read. Just my theory. We've got no information about this, but that Jackson Hole is the reason they're here, to have him test out this path to the Derby, and why just send one? Send another, and Accelerizes that one, because looking at him on Thoroughgraph, he's got to step forward in a very, very big way. He's had slow paces to work with. He wasn't impressive in his recent work with Life and Times. I think he could be a little bit chilly because of that.
Yeah, he didn't look good in that workout. Although I will say that those slow paces can suppress the figures.
True.
And he is, that was second off a long layoff, only third start of his life. He's got a lot of upside. I think he's going to be underlay, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if he runs big. But that workout was a little bit kind of not impressive, but I didn't look at all his workouts to see if he's just a lazy workhorse. But he certainly didn't look eager in that one. He got outworked.
Yeah. I would rather see Life and Times in this spot, But Sir Greyland's going really great. I think he got a little bit uneven ride. He broke. Like, he could put himself into the race a little bit more than Brian chose to. Brian took back with him, and and almost ran down Not This Boy. So I do want to be alive to him. Tarantino, I'll use him on my deepest tickets, and I'll use Willie D's as well. I think Willie D's has a shot in here. But Tarantino, he's shown some good efforts. He had an excuse. He got total check, cut off and hit the rail there, facing the likes of Fierceness and others. And he's a big dude. I just saw him the other day. He's a big, strong guy. He looks very fit, very fit. So they've regrouped with him, and Erden has done a great job in Kentucky. He's done good so far this meet, and he's got to be pissed about the Theismann making a mistake with that. So you got to think he's going to come with some loaded horses. So I think that Tarantino is worth using as well on my deepest tickets.
Yeah, well, you've got your best opinion, your strongest opinion is really Beating Just a Touch. So
yeah,
this is a race where you can spread if you're worried. You don't want to be right about Being Just a Touch and then get cute and leave off a horse.
That's it, Chris.
Contender,
I think
right?
that sometimes you have to realize is like, what's your real opinion, or what's the valuable opinion you have in the race? And my valuable opinion is on Beating Just a Touch. It's not about being the hero and having the top pick. And if Moonlight doesn't win, then it's about beating Just a Touch. And so I want to open up to that.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you got to look at the whole sequence, but certainly if you got a horse that's odds on or lower and you're fading him, that's really a good. And you're right about that. You don't want to get too cute. Now, if you only think there's 2 or 3 horses, then that's fine. But if you think there's 4 or 5 that might win it, and the 4th and 5th one could be, big prices, why not put those in? That because the big opinion is to beat the favorite. All right, so let's go on to the final race, the Grade 3 Lecomte. This is for 3-year-olds. This is a Derby points race. These early Derby preps are always fun because you usually get big fields, usually get lightly raced horses with a lot of upside and question marks. And I don't think, the one thing I would say for people when they're looking at the form, a non-graded stakes race could be a lot softer field than a salty maiden race at this point. So, I don't think these horses that have been in these maiden races are really stepping up in class much in terms of what they're facing. So keep that in mind. And of course, they all have a lot of upside at this age, especially when they're lightly raced. So, you have to count for all of that. And I think you got a lot of different angles in this one. So what's your assessment? Looks like this is another one where this morning line's just kind of atrocious.
Weak sauce. Yeah, you gotta help
How
guide the
can
people
Crown
in some
the
sort of way.
Buckeye? How could Crown the Buckeye possibly be the favorite on the morning line? That's insane. There's no way. There's no way on the planet, unless all the other horses scratch, that horse is going to be the favorite. So
I mean, look, Mike Gilberto, he's sharp, and I was hearing a good theory today in separation from this that the barn that they want to target the Preakness. They know he can't get the distance, and they're trying to win this race and sort of keep him ready for that. Ricardo's here to ride this horse, all that sort of stuff. So there could be some very live money behind this horse. I thought, talking to Loveberry after the race, that he told me he was praying for the finish line, and you can see it in the come home time. It just wasn't strong, that he's distance challenged. So, it's Mike Maker, Ricardo Santana Jr. He's been locked in recently for sure. And strong work there in the 3rd. Maybe they're going all in on this one. Maybe Mikey D is smarter than any of us, but I'm with you. If this is a 4-1 horse, then we're going to have some serious value elsewhere.
All right. So speaking of elsewhere, what are you thinking about this race? What are your opinions? And is there anything you think might be playable?
Yeah, I mean, I'm against the inner 4 horses there, 1 through 4. I'm against the gun runner horses. So trying to beat Chip Honcho coming out of that one. As I mentioned, Oselli's scratched. The ones that I'm interested in, I think will take money, in terms of Golden Tempo and White Tiger. I think they're the 2 most likely winners of this race. Golden Tempo, he's a classy dude. He really is. Seeing him in the paddock, seeing him, how quickly he came home, how quickly he finished that race, 23 something, coming home for that final quarter, I believe. And Sometimes they can look dressed up when they break slow and come flying. But Fancy Farlane was very live that day. Obelisk, leave Obelisk. Yeah, Obelisk for the Lindsay Schultz was very live that day. It was a good group. It was some fully cranked horses that he was facing on that gun runner undercard. So he will improve stretching out. Where does he want to slot himself? He's got to figure that out. And the price just might be too short in the end, Chris, to want to bet him to win. But he's my quote unquote top pick. Mesquite, not Mesquite, sorry, White Tiger. He's a monster. He's gonna run. He's a mile and a quarter horse for sure. And Brad, I think he's gonna have him ready to roll. I think he's gonna be very dangerous in the spot. I think he'll rate. I think talking, to Brad, and they were surprised that he was on the lead last out. He broke, almost hit his face on the ground, and then shot forward, and he seemed to sort of barely hang on. Maybe was a little bit green in terms of switching leads in the stretch, but he galloped out like a monster. He had plenty more. So I think they're going to rate him. I don't think he'll be forward, and I think he's going to be very dangerous in this spot. I think those two might be the top two choices. I think Stop the Car as well as Thunderbuck are the plays in terms of finding value. That was an uber impressive performance. Thunderbuck had so many reasons not to win that finale on the Gun Runner undercard. He multiple steadies. He's stuck in between different spots, had to split lateral shifts and just a huge gallop out. It was very impressive. He showed heart. He finished strong. He got faster as the race went on. And I think that could be a key race going forward. Ocelli's very live in the 8th, Liberty Balance, Market Rumor as well, Market Runner. So I think he beat a good group. I think Thunderbuck will be twice the price of White Tiger. I think it'll probably be 8-1, 7-1, 6-8-1, maybe. I think in that range. I think 6-8-1 on him. And Stop the Car, I think, is in that 8-12-1 range. Brendan Walsh trained, won a 2 in here, and I hear people, if you look at the works, Carson Street works better than Stop the Car. Stop the Car is the better horse. He's bigger. He's showed us a lot, winning on the Stars of Tomorrow card. He settled early, and he put himself up into the race. He really did. He got up right behind him. He showed his ability to really have that nose or have that mind for what he's doing out there for his job. And he looked, it's our time in the eyes, who maybe is not that much, but he went right by him. And I think he's just moving forward. He's progressing since then. So I think Stop the Car might, in the end, be the one who really offers the value. But Thunderbuck, Stop the Car, major value. I want to be open to all 4 of those in terms of the win, and Mesquite as well. I mean, I don't like him as much, but I would use him on my deepest tickets.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep race. Golden Tempo is bred to be, a really good horse too. A horse by Curlin out of Carumba, who was a really nice mare, and she's, by Bernardini. So a horse should stretch out, and Cherie DeVoe stretches him out pretty well. That looked like a prep, and like you said, close. But I have a feeling that horse is going to get hammered. And Jose Ortiz did choose to ride this one. And I will note one thing, kind of weird thing about the fairgrounds, because it's non-HISA, I guess, is, they can run on Lasix, except for in the graded stakes. And
no, except for in the Derby preps, the Derby and Oaks
the Derby preps. Okay, yeah. So
graded stakes you can, but then not in the Derby and Oaks preps.
And so this horse ran on Lasix on debut, and now has to come off. I probably doesn't matter, but just something to keep in mind. The other thing I'd mention, Carson Street, is his big win was his only race with Lasix. It was also his only race in the slop. So, that horse I don't like much, but just kind of point out that Lasix thing is something to keep in mind. But I agree with you. Golden Tempo could be a really good horse. A White Tiger as well. I kind of favor that one because it's been around 2 turns. I kind of agree with you. The horse stumbled out of the gate, and I think that lit it up, right? And it just took off and went really fast early, and it looked like it was going to be tiring late, but it got challenged and it kicked away. And like you said, it galloped out really well. So I kind of like that horse. I don't think there's any question marks with that one. I'd be surprised if it's on the lead unless it stumbles and gets lit up again. So between the two, I would probably favor White Tiger because I just think it's there's fewer questions. But they're both 8 to 1 the morning line. I don't think either will be 8 to 1. Which one do you think will be shorter? I'm thinking Golden Tempo was going to take more money than White Tiger, but what do you think?
I mean, it's bizarre world around here. I mean, I would have no, I mean, absolutely 100% put all my money on the fact that it'd be White Tiger up until I saw Bless the Broken go off at 2 to 1 and Being Myself go off at 4 to 5 last week. The Shri DeVoe Being Myself was 4 to 5 and Bless the Broken was 2 to 1. It shocked me. So we'll see. If it happens again, then that is officially the new trend. But,
Oh, she's been taking money for a while now. I mean, anywhere, not just at the fairgrounds. Her horses get bet. It's amazing how much talent she's acquired in that stable in a short period of time. But her
oh,
horses
gosh.
get
Yeah.
hammered. They
Shit.
always
Well,
get hammered.
it's just not to the level that that Cox's barn does, and especially with them right there and the likes of Bless the Broken, third in the Kentucky Oaks versus a one-time greatest sake trier Being Myself. That could have been a one-off situation. Definitely, her barn's been getting bet, but to think that she's got that much sort of money behind her, who get behind her to take on Bless the Broken, it was surprising. So it's a toss up to me. My guess, really though, it is going to be White Tiger. I think when it comes down to it, that they'll bet White Tiger a little bit more because of the two turns. You can just make more of a case for him as opposed to just getting behind a horse that you think might be the goods, which is the case you got to make for Golden Tempo.
Yeah, so Thunderbuck kind of makes sense. I'm not totally enamored with him, but again, that's one where he ran on Lasix in his good race, his last one. Now he's off, so that's just something again to keep in mind. White Tiger didn't run on Lasix, so that's not an issue with him. Stop the Car hasn't been on Lasix either. That one's just a little weird that they would start it in 6 furlongs in a maiden claiming race.
Yeah,
But
Brendan's been talking about that pretty frankly. I mean, he just wasn't showing himself in the mornings, and so they just try to spot him in the right spot. And he was obviously, impressed him enough to have him enter in that allowance on the Stars of Tomorrow 2 card. And he took on a decent field. And he's just been moving forward. Absolutely. I mean, they're seeing he's figuring things out, and he's become a good morning worker. So he's more of a project. They didn't see it initially, but he's come along a big ways in a short time. So yeah, I think he's, that could be a question mark in general. I mean, he's just a maximum security Colt 110,000. Not quite as well bred as some of these other ones, but I think that we should trust the form that we saw, and that he should move forward from it, from that Churchill effort. And his figure, though, is he the fastest
he
on
got
Thoroughgraph?
it depends. Oh, I was gonna say it depends on what numbers you're looking at. But I mean, certainly his numbers fit, so there's nothing wrong with.
Yeah,
He ran an 80 buyer, which is a kind of in line with Chip Honcho, White Tiger, Mesquite. They're all kind of 80, low 80s. So,
yeah. I do think that the Ohio bred is the fastest on rags, and then it's a White Tiger and Stop the Car on Thoroughgraph.
yeah, I have a feeling this race might be one of those races where there's, let's see, one, two, three, four, five, six. There could be 6 horses that are all like 3 to 1 to 6 to 1. That's what I'm thinking in this race.
That would
I
be
have
that'd be amazing.
I have a feeling that they're not going to, just hammer one or two of them. That there's enough upside and question marks, and the connections are strong. And I have a feeling that this one's going to be a pretty flat odds board.
It probably
So
will be at the end. With the figures come back from the gun runner were surprisingly fast. I mean, Quality Mischief got a 7, and that was a big move forward for him. But the computers will adjust for that. I mean, the fact that he did run that number and it is from that barn, I think they'll bet him into underlay zone for sure, and a few of these others. So you could be very right.
all right. So on this race, then, how are you going to play this one in your pick 5 or pick 4?
Yeah. Again, so like I'll spread with all of those with the 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 in the Moonlight single ticket that I spread deep in, and I'll skinny up from there. In terms of how I'm using the other horses. I'll play it multiple times. It's like a $35 ticket to spread as deep as I was talking about in the Colonel Bradley, and to use those 5 horses in the Lecomte. I think, like we're saying, a flattish board should make it worth enough. But getting Moonlight home and $35 ticket, not so bad. So and then I'll push up on Stop the Car. What am I going to push up on, Chris? That's the question. It's a hard race.
Well, you don't have
I don't
to.
want to push
You don't
up
have
and
to
I'm
force
blind into
it.
these horses. In terms of which ones I really want to push up more. Yeah.
You don't
So
have to force it if you
it might
don't.
just be using all those instead of trying to be too cute and try to thread the needle.
So your strongest opinions in that pick 4 sequence are you want to beat Just a Touch.
Yep.
You're going to go after Laganos too, those
Yep.
2 favorites. You're going to single Atropa, and then you're going to be kind of spreading somewhat liberally in those last 2 legs. Not getting too cute, especially in that, like, one, you don't really have a strong opinion, and you figure they're all going to be similar prices. And the other one, you don't want to miss out on opportunity to beat Just a Touch in that sequence.
Yeah.
So here's a question I have for you. It's a pick 4. You've got a horse that's going to be odds on single in the first leg. Why not just, do you really buy much by playing the pick 4 with that horse, or why not just start with the pick 3?
Well, what I like to do is just get a sense for how much she sort of might be a single for a lot of people, and I think she'll be on a lot of tickets. Looking at some other people's picks and hearing people talk, they kind of think it's a fairly wide open race. I think people will be a little defensive to just go after that one, especially with the presence of white smoke in there. And I think there'll be a lot of money behind Taken by the Wind. So I think I feel more confident about the one than the market will.
Okay.
In that pick
so
4.
You don't think she's a big underlay, is what you're saying?
In the win pool, I think she will be, but I think people will use multiple fillies in that field.
Okay.
I think she'll be a single for some tickets for sure, but I do think that people will be making cases for a few of these other ones that I'm willing to toss out.
All right. So anything else you want to say about the races we talked about, or there's some other really horse you love on the card you want to talk about before we get into our question and answer session at the end here?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, I solicited some questions out on Twitter/X. We'll roll through them. First one is from Michael Baychok at Baychok Racing. What are your thoughts on the turf course and how it plays when the rails are at 0, like they will be, as compared to like when they're out at 20 feet?
Yeah. Historically, there's been some biases that develop on this turf course based off the rails. And for a period this meet, and I'll say this, the turf course, it's as good as it's ever been, like I've said before, and it's shorter than it's ever been. It's typically just been a longer, sort of thick, lush situation. It's just much shorter, and I think it's playing faster. We're seeing faster fractions throughout, and I think it's been very fair. Now, that being said, when the rail's out, I still think the best part of the racetrack is pronounced as that far sort of stand side rail, that far outside part, and the outside post positions have proven to have a touch of a bias, in terms of getting it done. So when the rail's out, I'm seeing that with this turf course, you want outside horses, you want outside runners, and sometimes you can get buried in this turf course when you are on the inside. It's hard to get out and produce sort of against the against that sort of tighter turn as it gets tighter with the rails going out. But I think it's more about where the going is. But with the rails down, I think it's just a fair turf course right now, top to bottom, with slight, preferences that the going's gonna be better on the inside, and it's gonna be going on the far outside. But there's consequences of the far outside with the ground loss. But I don't think there's any spot of it that I'm seeing that's chewed up or worn down, which I think is what creates the biases in a big way.
All right. So you're thinking it's pretty fair. Usually if
Yeah,
it's
which is
fair,
different historically. Definitely some
right.
big biases, and Baychok knows that for sure.
All right. So next question from Ribby Pultz, Ribby Pultz one on Twitter. Any Derby future wager thoughts? Since there is another future wager pool going this weekend, are you going to dip your toes in that water?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, there's been good conversations. Andy Serling kind of kicked one off about, hey, we're not seeing Ted Noffey on the work tab. Why would you ever bet him? And I think that's the sort of first thought you want to have is
He did
is
work recently here,
he just
so
worked today, right? Yeah,
yeah.
I guess, yeah, he was under light training at Bear Hill, and now he finally worked. So you want to make sure there are two things that you just see all the time: are they in training, and can they get the distance? We've got Crown the Buckeye, and who doesn't look like he's taking any money on this list. I don't think you want to bet him. I just don't think you do. And what I'm hearing the talk that they're not even thinking Derby with them. So you want to make sure they can get the distance. Is Englishman on the work tab? I don't think he is. It might be too much for him to ask. I think Cannoneer and Commandment, I'm seeing 28-1, 25-1 are very serious horses. Blackout Time, I think he's back at Oaklawn, but I don't think he's worked yet. I Liberty National is a really good horse. I think he's got more development. So it's the type of horse that I could get behind. I mean, I see 80-1 is the sort of morning line, and he's currently above 100-1. Liberty National is a horse that is worth a swing because the price is right. You want those big tickets. And then in terms of this race, what we've seen with White Tiger. He hasn't taken any money yet. He's in the hundreds and plus, but we'll have the results of this race, so that's going to skew things in the direction of whoever does well. It's going to give you information, but it's going to take away your price. Paladin, they're going to bet really hard. Yeah, I think Liberty National is kind of interesting, but
Liberty National
and Cannoneer, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll just say I would typically not play any horse out of this race because if they run well, they're going to get hammered. Because I don't. This does it close before or after this race?
It's after. It's on Sunday
Okay.
at
Yeah,
6
right.
Eastern.
So I would stay away from any. If a horse runs well in this race, that recency bias really kicks in. So those are ones you want to avoid. And now if a horse doesn't run well and you think it had an excuse, then maybe that's when you play it. But
or like a horse like Mesquite, who I think is going to develop more and more, and maybe this isn't his race now, early in the season. Could run a fourth, and that could be a really nice play because they're going to overbet. Assuming Golden Tempo runs better than that, they'll overbet Golden Tempo.
Yeah, there you go. So a horse like that isn't. But you don't want to play the horse that wins by 5 in this race, right? That's the horse you want to stay away from. I'll throw out a horse. I have a feeling it's going to take a lot of money, because it looks so good. But Bill Mott sent out a horse named Thunderously last weekend, going 2 turns on debut at Gulfstream, ran a big figure on Timeform US 110, and it just was really impressive. It broke sharp. It stalked mid-pack. As soon as Alvarado asked him, he moved off the rail and just made a big move and galloped out really well. I mean, it just was a great debut. It ticks all the boxes. He can get 2 turns. He can handle, being down on the inside behind horses. He can make a move when asked. He can finish his races off. He's got good connections. Unfortunately, the connections are the same as last year, so they'll probably get bet. But that horse was pretty awesome on debut. So I wouldn't probably play him in this one unless he's like 40-1. I'm guessing he won't be. But, that horse caught my eye in terms of the horses that have, starting. It's horses that are, starting to see for the first time in January. That one's to keep an eye on. So that's the one I'll throw up. All right, so let's move on to another one. This one's from Pony Capper. What role does jockey assignment have in your handicapping, specifically in a race where a trainer has 2 in a race and the same jock rode both previously? We have a couple of examples of that in the races we talked about.
Yeah, I mean, like we've got that with Jose Ortiz. I mean, he's the first call for DeVoe, and I think Shree's publicly saying, he's been on him and he's been able to choose, and whatever that means. But I mean, it plays a big role. Mostly, the two things for me. One, I think jockey agents are some of the sharpest people in our game, and I want to know what they think, and this is how I get their opinions. This is how I understand what they think. I really do. Not all jockey agents by any means, but some of them that back the best jocks. So I like to think that, and like to think, all right, this horse is it moves up in my opinion, but exactly at the same time, the market goes with these jocks. They take a lot of money behind them. So for me, jockey assignment tells me a lot about the race and really what I'm dealing with, in terms of how live these horses are and how much I can make a case for them, and can at times make me not want to take on a favorite because of jockey assignment, or it can also make me want to play uh, a price horse because, like, what is Jose Ortiz doing riding for Joe Duhan? I never saw that in my life. A local Louisiana trainer, and here Jose's riding for him. Like, surely this horse is live, right? But you've got to consider the price because the market follows them. So more so for me, I just want to be more familiar with the smaller barns and the lower profile jocks, and just if I've got faith they can get it done. There's some I don't, for sure, but I want to get behind those sort of picks a little bit more because I know the price is going to be there. It's just not the value's just not going to be there with the colonies like Fairgrounds where you have Paco and Jose who are going to take the lion's share of the money, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of factors that come into play too. It's the owners make a big difference. If it's an owner has a lot of good horses, the jockey and the agent are going to tend to lean that direction. And so it's situational. You have to keep everything in mind. And a lot of times they don't really know which one's better. They have to pick one of them, right? You don't
Right.
really know if they picked it because they really think this horse is more likely to win, or they had to choose one. That so you got to keep that in mind. All right, another one from Luke Lemke, ECMEL 182. This is kind of a general question, so we don't want to spend too much time on it, but are there any trainers you favor when handicapping, and how does that affect the way you view a race? I think it's going to be obviously yes, but is there any in particular kinds of things you look for that where the trainer really comes into play?
Well, two things for me. I've noticed that I do start sort of like uh, getting in a rut with certain trainers, where I start glomming onto them. I start sort of trusting them maybe a little bit too much because they're like an old friend who I'm like, oh, you've done good for me before, and you probably will again. And so I try to open that up and try to make sure I don't get in those ruts, and keep on looking at every horse, with fresh eyes, and not get sort of those biases, those sort of, personal past experience biases. So I watch out for that. And then I like trainers who are lower profile. I just do. I just because they offer value. They're just going to get under bet. Not all the time in all situations by any means, but the lower profile trainers. I like to have a good sense of the ones I can trust, and get a feel for that. So I'm always sort of trying to sort of build my stable of lower profile trainers that are doing great work, and the spots where they get overlooked, because those are good times to play them.
Yeah, and a lot of times they do have certain situations where their horses tend to outrun their odds, and some of that you can look at statistically with a tool like Formulator. Some of it you just get a feel for, but there's certainly some trainers that I typically have more success with. It's kind of like I must understand a little better, or the kind of horse I like to play, or the kind of horses they excel with. Sometimes I'm not sure why, but definitely, you got to factor the trainer in for sure. There's no way you can ignore that.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, all right, and like you said, a lot of times you got to factor in the impact on the price, just like with the riders. The
Yeah.
top trainers and riders take money, and so you always have to understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the same way, though, like with certain barns, they take money, and they win 80% of the time when they take money in that certain way when they're live, throughout. That's a good time to really maybe trust that and lean into it and single, and find value in other legs. Just you see the market open up. That's when you can have a feel for when Tom Amos is live, when Larry Ravelli is live, when Brad Cox is truly, truly live. You can build still valuable tickets around that and really express that, and just and throw your handicapping out the window and just know that this is something we've seen before, and you have a feel for it. So the opposite's kind of true as well sometimes.
All right, so let's move on. Mike Joyce. This is at BTW Mike. I'm not. Maybe I have Mike and Mick. I'm not sure which one's right.
He goes by Mick.
Mick. Okay. Um, do dirt races favor speed on big days, starting with Lecomte, or more so later in the meet?
I think it's a good question. We just saw a speed favoring. I think the first truly speed favoring track of the meet today here at Fairgrounds. So I saw them blading the rail earlier, and they bladed it pretty deep. And yeah, so that's something to keep in mind for tomorrow. Is
The
we
old
saw
souped up
four.
track on a big day.
Yeah, we saw four wire to wire winners at sprint distances, and one who just got nailed by a an up close tracker. In the the 1 2 turn race. So 2 turns can be different. It obviously can, especially on a long stretch. The meet, for the most part, has been not favorable to anybody who's trying to wire the field. It's been forward-ish, but we haven't seen a ton of wire-to-wire winners. So they might have shifted. It's just an extra variable, but we'll keep an eye on how things go in those first few. That's for sure.
All right, and he also asked who makes the best pizza in New Orleans.
I think it's got to be Pizza D, Pizza Delicious down in Bywater. It's pretty damn good. Yeah, okay. It really is. New York style. You can't beat it.
All right. Who wants the Cajun or the Creole? Let's go for the pizza. All right. Okay. Well, last question. This one's from Kevin Gazal or Gazale or Gazali. I'm not sure I put your name, so I apologize to you, Kevin, if I did. Is it a negative EV strategy to play a double with a favorite singled in one race? Additionally, is it negative EV to play an exacta with a favorite? I have an answer to this one, but I'll let you take it first.
Well, so if a double is favorite singled in a double, it depends on the type of favorite. There's all sorts of different breeds of favorites. I mean, like one of these Brad Cox favorites that's opening up at 1 to 5, or Eddie Keneally or et cetera like that. Yeah, that's going to be a tough situation to make money on. However, you just see these favorites get joined together, and there's usually still meat on the bone if you can make a case for value horses. You just have to be absolutely not using the favorite in the next leg, not the second choice, likely not the third or fourth choice. You got to know in that next leg that you're going to get yours. So I think the same would be applying to an exacta. If you do like a favorite, you key on top, and you find your prices. I mean, Ted Nafi, I was able to make a good score on him by just the chalk splitting mentality in the trifecta. I keyed him on top. I put Brant in third, and I used the prices I like. Just two of them. I stayed skinny, and I pushed it up and made a nice score. I thought there was value there. I think it was positive. I think it was I knew it was a good play. You got to take a stand. Don't want to use that second choice in the second leg, etc. You just have to situate it with value. But I think you can still find that spot because they still overbet the favorite in the next leg or in the next spot. They just do. They really do.
Yeah. So to me, it's just, what's your opinion of the favorite? So if you think the favorite is a big underlay, then I don't know why you'd want to be betting it. But if you think it's, there's a little bit of an overlay or even fair value, then I can see, if there's a horse you like, it's got to be a horse you think has value. Why would you bet it in an exacta or a double with a horse you think's a big underlay? It's going to be harder to hit that because now two things have to happen instead of one, and you're not really leveraging any value. You're actually taking value away. So it all depends on the favorite. Now, if the favorite's you think he's fair value or higher, and you've got like a long shot, maybe then I could see that, but I wouldn't force it. To me, and I see this a lot with doubles. People will play doubles with really underlaid heavy favorites, like they think they're getting more value, and I think you're just better off betting that same amount more to win than to be playing into that kind of a double or an exacta.
Right. The probables are just so key to use. You just have to look at them. You have to do that work of seeing how they're betting them. And if you can have a real sense, the last minute money makes things hard, but if you can have a real sense that your second spot, you're going to you're going to put horses that you think have a shot, that that are offering what you perceive to be value, that you think is good with that relationship to your opinion on the favorite. I think there's opportunity there. Now, I'll say, what about a pick three, or what about a trifecta? Maybe you just need to add one more leg to it to really make it work, even if it's putting the second choice, that chalk splitter sort of scenario. But probably you want to find value past that. So
Yeah,
case by case situation, but maybe you want to just open it up a little more to a trifecta or a pick three to express that opinion.
And every favorite's not an underlay. So there's some favorites that are overlays, and so it just all depends on the favorite. It's not a negative EV bet just because it's a favorite. Now, typically, the favorites they're not a lot of. It's harder to find, I think, overlays with favorites just because usually it's pretty obvious. But that's not always the case. And if you have a strong opinion, you really like this horse, and you think, hey, even though he's a favorite, he's still value, then go for it. You have to look at, what is this really a positive EV? Doesn't really matter if it's a favorite or a long shot. They both could be terrible bets or good bets. That's what you have to, that's where your opinion comes in.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, well, that's it. Anything else you want to add that we haven't covered?
Dude, just cheers to you, Chris. I love how much you've advanced the conversation about betting strategy, about structuring tickets. Listening to Bet with the Best and Sport of Kings over the years has helped me a ton. I hope it's helping other people. I know it is. It is that next level that you have to get to as a horse player, especially these days. It's a tough battle out there. I think we can still win it against these big whales. But thanks for advancing it. Cheers to you, Chris.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the work you do as an analyst. And yeah, it's a good lead-in. I want to just remind people my book, Betting on Horses, will be coming out, and I think there'll be a lot of good information in there about how to improve your game, both on a handicapping, but also maybe more importantly, how you take your opinions and turn them into good bets. And Kevin, I have some stuff from you in that book, so that you're going to be part of that. Hopefully, you'll enjoy that, seeing the whole thing.
Proud to be part of it, man. I'm excited for that book to hold my hand and looking at the cover and sort of seeing some of your tweets. Sounds like it's going to be a nice book to hold, which is always fantastic.
I hope so. I'm doing my best to make it something that be worth people's time and money to invest in. All right. Well, that should do it. I want to thank you again, Kevin, for joining us today. And of course, to all the listeners out there, that will conclude show number 345 of the Sport of Kings podcast. Good luck this weekend, and please enjoy the Brooklyn Boogaloo Blowout. Cheers.